Calculating route. Please proceed to highlighted route.
You're listening to News 88.7.
Maybe you start your day with the news on Morning Edition and catch up later with All Things Considered. Well, news doesn't wait. Stories evolve during the day, in courtrooms, financial markets, on the streets, and at kitchen tables, locally, nationally, around the world. Hi, it's Robin Young. Each weekday, check in with Here and Now for the news as it's happening. That's Here and Now from WBUR and NPR News.
Here and Now, weekdays beginning at noon on News 88.7.
Tonight on Houston Public Media, TV8. At 7, Nature presents Expedition, Killer Whale. Then, beginning at 8, Nova and Secrets of the Dead investigate ancient Egyptian secrets. Tonight on TV8, or stream on the PBS app.
We'll have a mostly cloudy day with a chance of showers, about a 50% chance of them again this afternoon. Currently, we have 75 overcast and breezy. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. I'm Tom Carter. It's 11 o'clock.
Powerball numbers continue to skyrocket, yet the odds of winning the jackpot are 1 in 292 million. What's the story behind our love of lotteries? From WAMU and NPR in Washington, this is 1A. Let's do the numbers. The first state-run lottery began in New Hampshire in 1960.
Turn right.
In 2023, Americans spent $100 billion
Turn
on state-run
right.
lotteries, more than they spent on pizza, coffee, or cigarettes. Today, we talk to the host of Scratch and Win, a new podcast from GBH News in Boston that explores the history of state-run lotteries and their biggest innovation, the scratch-off ticket. But first, the current strain of avian flu has caused egg prices to soar. What's the latest on the outbreak, and how are poultry and dairy farmers responding to the crisis? That's coming up after this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate has just confirmed Tulsi Gabbard to serve as a Director of National Intelligence. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports on the vote, which included a no from Republican Senator Mitch McConnell.
Republicans praise Gabbard's plans to reduce inefficiencies and refocus national intelligence. The number 2 GOP leader, John Barrasso, stressed her vision for peace through strength.
Washington wants to trust our intelligence agencies again. We need to take an axe to the weaponization of these very agencies.
Some Senate Republicans cited Gabbard's praise for Edward Snowden, a former contractor who leaked classified material, as an issue. But after Gabbard gave assurances she would guard against unauthorized disclosures, they voted for her. Gabbard served in the House for 8 years as a Democrat, but Senate Democrats argued she didn't have the experience or judgment to lead the agency. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News, the Capitol.
An administration official confirms to NPR the U.S. is freeing a Russian national jail for alleged money laundering in exchange for securing the release of American teacher Mark Fogel. The deal to swap Alexander Vinnik for Fogel. One of President Trump's top immigration advisors says he is not happy with the rate at which the government is deporting immigrants. NPR's Adrian Florido reports border czar Tom Homan says he wants federal agents to work faster to carry out Trump's mass deportation plans.
Speaking outside the White House, Homan claimed the government is making deportation arrests at 3 times the rate of the Biden administration. That would be about 1,000 a day. He called that good.
But I'm not satisfied. There's more criminal aliens that need to be arrested, hundreds of thousands. Sanctuary cities are putting roadblocks up. We got leaks. So we need to increase the arrest of illegal aliens, especially those with criminal convictions.
Homan's recently been vocal about his anger at obstacles agents have faced. Officials in sanctuary cities unwilling to help. A large raid in Colorado that fell flat after plans were leaked to the press. His comments come amid reports that 2 top officials at Immigration and Customs Enforcement have been demoted over the pace of deportations. Adrian Florido, NPR News.
The U.S. housing market could experience a more than $1.4 trillion loss in value. NPR's Julia Simon reports on the latest warning from the research firm First Street Analytics.
Home ownership has often been seen as a key part of the American dream. The hope for many was that a home could grow value and at the very least store value. Now more wildfires, flood events, and heat events, made more likely because of humans burning fossil fuels, have led insurance providers to increase premiums or withdraw from certain areas. Homes with more expensive insurance or no insurance could lose value. The analysis finds that by 2055, 84% of all census tracts may experience some form of negative property value impacts from climate risk.
That's Julia Simon. It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Thomas. President Trump's executive order to enact 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum could have a rippling impact, especially here in Houston. Renee Cross is the Senior Executive Director and Researcher at the University of Houston's Hobby School of Public Affairs. She told Houston Matters the tariffs will likely drive up prices on items that require parts from other countries.
Think about construction. It's not just what these tariffs may do, say, to our neighbors to the south of us, but if we can't get some of those parts from Mexico at a reasonable cost, of course things are going to go up.
Cross says tariffs could impact many industries and projects here in Houston, including large-scale work on pipelines and office buildings. Road and bridge projects also could be impacted. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston has laid off 120 employees after the federal government suspended funding for organizations that help refugees. News 88.7's Patricia Ortiz has more.
President Donald Trump first signed an executive order in January that suspended refugee admissions and stopped federal funding for organizations that have served refugees for decades. In a statement, Catholic Charities said they made staffing adjustments that allow the agency to continue serving individuals and families in need. Houston immigration attorney Ruby Powers says nonprofits that help refugees usually assist with learning English, finding jobs, and setting refugee children up in school.
Helping them work on their language and jobs or in school. It's not forever. It's a process, like the first few months, 6 months, even to a year.
A number of national nonprofits that work with refugees have sued to challenge the suspension. The lawsuit claims the executive order is unlawful and violates the authority of Congress to make immigration laws. I'm Patricia Ortiz, News 88.7.
And I'm Matt Thomas, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates, all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/Indeed.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White. Having trouble finding eggs in the grocery store this week? Well, you're not alone. Bird flu is roiling egg farms across the country. In 2022, highly pathogenic avian influenza, or H5N1, was detected in poultry in the U.S. Then last year, it spread to cows and humans. 68 people have been diagnosed with bird flu since March, with the first death related to avian flu last month. That person was 65 years old and had underlying medical conditions, according to the Louisiana Department of Health. What are farmers doing to protect their flocks? And how worried should we be about the eggs and milk we buy from the store? Joining us to discuss is Nicole Martin. She's a food scientist, an assistant research professor in dairy foods microbiology, and the associate director of the Milk Quality Improvement Program at Cornell University. Nicole, welcome back to the program.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So, H5N1 was first detected in 2022. 150 million chickens and turkeys have been euthanized since then. How have the number of birds affected changed since we first detected the virus?
Right, so several years ago, we first detected this particular strain of virus here in the United States, and it has been circulating since that time, mostly in migratory waterfowl, which is sort of the natural source for this influenza virus. But really in 2023, late 2023, early 2024, we started seeing additional outbreaks of this virus across the U.S. And as you mentioned, this happened in dairy cattle, but it's particularly hitting the poultry industry. industry right now in all 50 states. Many birds have been euthanized, as you said. So this has really ramped up over the last year or so, and we're still seeing this virus circulating in dairy cattle and mutating, and new strains circulating in dairy cattle as well.
What's this done to the cost and availability of eggs?
This is a very severe disease in birds. That's why we call it highly pathogenic avian influenza. So when birds come down with this flu, they have to be euthanized because it spreads very rapidly, and it will most likely kill the bird anyway, even if they aren't euthanized. And so because these laying flocks are having to be depopulated, is what we call it, that allows us to, sort of see this play out in the marketplace, where we have a demand but not enough supply of eggs for the demand, and so the price increases.
Right now, how is the spread or presence of this strain of H5N1 being tracked in the poultry population?
Sure. So monitoring is really, really important for understanding how this disease is spreading, and the poultry industry has a little more experience with this than the dairy industry at this point, but monitoring and keeping a close eye on the birds in the flock, making sure they understand what the symptoms of this disease are, and then getting testing done regularly, inspections done regularly. So this really does allow the poultry industry to quickly identify when there is avian influenza in the flock, and then respond appropriately.
And what is that tracking telling us about how the virus is being spread?
Right. So that's the thing that we have a lot more data on in the poultry industry than, again, in the dairy industry at this point. And we know that there are some risk factors for spread of this disease, and one of those is presence of wild birds in the area around the flock. So farmers can do several things to help protect the flock from exposure to wild birds, because the flu is native and sort of natural in these animals. Then, again, other sort of biosecurity measures that are important, making sure there's good hygiene. Certainly both humans that are coming into the space where the birds are kept, as well as equipment, and making sure that there's just really good protocols in place to keep the virus from spreading from one flock to another.
Looking at the numbers we've discussed, 150 million chickens and turkeys euthanized since 2022, the increase in egg prices, it seems that there's some challenges coming from this flu and farmers' efforts to mitigate it. What are they running into?
Well, part of it is just that we don't see a seasonal sort of spread of this disease anymore. It really is being spread throughout the year. So the challenges are more widespread because we don't see sort of the connection with the migration patterns in the same way that we might have seen it in the past. The other challenge is just around the fact that these flocks tend to be quite large, and when one of them contracts the virus, then it's a large number of birds that are depopulated because of that contraction of the virus.
You said we're not seeing a seasonal spread of this flu. Why has it changed?
So part of that is just because it is becoming more common to see this jumping between commercial flocks, between backyard flocks. We certainly are still seeing it in wild animals, and again, across the U.S. we see bird flu in both wild birds as well as in mammals. And we do see new sustained transmission within certain animals, specifically in mammals, that we've never seen before. So in certain, marine mammals, in dairy cows, which has never been seen before, in minks in certain parts of Europe. So, this is new in the sense that it's not single transmission events
then
into
immediately
mammals. It's really
exit
more
right.
sustained transmission within other populations of animals than we've seen in the past.
So you said this is showing up in
Exit
cows
right.
for the first time. How is the dairy industry responding?
Well, we We currently have monitoring in place led by the federal government and at the state level. And we're learning a lot more about where the virus is in dairy systems across the U.S.
yards, turn
and
right.
We're
Turn
still learning
right.
a lot about the transmission of this virus from farm to farm. But what we have seen is sustained transmission from the beginning of this outbreak in early 2024 to now. We're still seeing new farms positive every week.
There was another avian flu outbreak in 2014. How is this outbreak different, or how does it compare to that outbreak?
There have actually been avian influenza outbreaks since, the 1990s. This isn't terribly new. What we're seeing this time that is unique is the sustained transmission or continued transmission from birds into mammals and then through the mammals themselves.
You have
and
arrived.
As you've probably seen, and you noted earlier, we've seen transmission from these dairy cows to humans and to cats, and potentially even cats to humans. Now there's some evidence that could be occurring. So these are all new sort of representations of how this virus is spreading.
A dairy farmer in Nevada was diagnosed with a new strain of avian flu at the end of last month, according to CDC officials. How quickly are these new strains being identified as the virus is moving between populations?
Well, we don't have a good sense at this point how quickly the virus is mutating in new strains, simply because we are just getting monitoring up and running at the dairy farm level over the last couple of months. So that'll tell us a lot more about the mutation of the virus across both space and time. But I will say that the monitoring will give us a lot of information about the prospective mutations and what those might mean to human health as well.
What do consumers need to know about the risk of avian flu in products they purchase at the grocery store? Because I think that's top of mind for a lot of people.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the price of eggs is obviously an issue. The availability of eggs is an issue, but the safety of eggs is quite stable. So what we know is that due to the severity of the disease in poultry, the chance that eggs from animals that have been infected get into the commercial supply chain is very, very low, because this happens so rapidly. Those eggs are still,